Greetings to you, traveler. I am the modern druid, and welcome to this fourth concept of delirium. Here, we will attempt to define the concept of proletarianization. In everyday language, a proletarian is someone who is poor, someone from the lower social classes. In Marxist theory, the proletarian is more precisely defined as an individual who owns nothing but their labor power, and then have to sell this labor to the bourgeoisie, who own the means of production. Bernard Stiegler took up this concept, refined it, and proposed the following definition. Proletarianization is what happens when an individual loses a form of knowledge in their relationship with a technique or technology. In other words, certain techniques or technologies become so complex that they absorb knowledge to such a degree that users no longer need to possess it themselves, and they thus become dispossessed of it. Of course, machines don't know anything by themselves. But knowledge is always externalized, and once it's embedded in a technical device, humans can become dispossessed of it. Sometimes, it's just because a new technology appears, and replace an old one, and the necessary knowledges linked to the old one are no longer necessary. There is, for instance, no need to know how to ride a horse in a world full of cars. The word proletarian comes from proles, which means to reproduce. A proletarian can only reproduce things exactly as received, without altering, modifying, personalizing, or innovating, which would otherwise be signs of true mastery. For examples, a doctor can be proletarianized if they rely too heavily on diagnostic software or merely prescribe pharmaceutical drugs without understanding their mechanisms. In this way, the medical industry, big pharma, can proletarianize doctors. A driver may be proletarianized by GPS navigation, eventually forgetting how to read a map. A writer may lose spelling abilities due to overuse of autocorrect. In that way, one can therefore lose knowledge and become proletarianized through technical use, even without belonging to the lower economic classes. Stiegler identified three types of knowledge: know-how, know-to-live, and theoretical knowledge, and proletarianization can affect all three. Proletarianization of know-how occurred massively during the Industrial Revolution. With the use of steam power and later electricity, engineers automated machines. Workers, once operators of their own tools, became servants of machines. This proletarianization intensified under Taylorism and Fordism, the scientific organization of work. These systems boosted productivity, but reduced the skill required to work in factories, thereby justifying lower wages. Hence the close association between proletarianization and poverty. The lower classes were massively stripped of their traditional know-how by modern production techniques. The proletarianization of know-to-live emerged in the U.S. at the beginning of the 20th century, and in Europe in the 50th, with the post-war Reconstruction and the Marshall Plan. In those times, centralized cultural industries, radio, TV, alongside marketing efforts, profoundly reshaped people's lifestyles. These cultural industries became auxiliary tools of mass production systems. Marketing exploited Freud's theories of the unconscious, via Edward Bernays, to promote public relations or commercial propaganda. Instead of spreading knowledge, cultural industries spread advertising messages. They altered traditional ways of life, family relations for instance, to stimulate consumption. destroying long-standing savoir-vivre in the process. As Patrick Lelay, former CEO of one of the French main TV, bluntly put it, "Our job is to sell available brain time to Coca-Cola." Unlike the proletarianization of know-how, which mostly affected workers, the proletarianization of know to live affects everyone, especially children, who are immersed in a hyper-industrial system where lifestyle and culture are systematically exploited for commercial ends. Thirdly, the proletarianization of theoretical knowledge is more subtle and can take at least two forms. Through automated research tools, data collection and measurement instruments that become black boxes. These tools allow researchers to generate data without fully understanding how it's produced. For example, with automated microscopes. In the age of big data, some even speculated about the end of theory, where statistical analysis replaces conceptual thinking. This form of proletarianization strips researchers of the sense of their own work. Proletarianization of theoretical knowledge can also append through cognitive automatism, when people stop questioning the concepts they use. We assume that we know while being unconsciously limited by the very frameworks our knowledge rely on. Concepts, while helpful, can act as filters, concealing alternative ideas. What we can think may obscure what we might think. Concepts are human constructions, probably too human, and anthropocentric by nature. We'll have to come back to this later. Let's summarize what we've seen on proletarianization. The more powerful a technology becomes, especially one designed to help us, the more it incorporates knowledge. But the more it does so, the more proletarianizing it becomes. If knowledge provides pleasure, flavor, and meaning, proletarianization brings the opposite, sadness and despair. In the video on knowledge, we said that knowledge is the ability to associate elements and people of the world. Proletarianization deprives people of this ability to connect things and other people. In the video on libidinal economy, we said that knowledge helps individuals channel their drives. A proletarianized person may then no longer be able to sublimate drives, and may instead become impulsive or aggressive, especially sexually. According to the theory of biotechno-sociological individuation, knowledge is vital, because it links biology, technology, and society. Proletarianization breaks these links, and leads to dehumanization, or what Stiegler called disindividuation, which, in extreme cases, may indirectly lead to death. That said, the proletarianization, in Stiegler's views, seems to be a quite negative process. But whenever a new technology replaces an old one, it destroys the knowledge associated with the older system, and it may also allow for new knowledge to emerge. In a way, proletarianization is also part of life, and any period of proletarianization, due to the changing of a technique, calls for a new era of knowledge production. When a new technique appears, a period or disindividuation must lead to new forms of individuation. That is what we will try to think through in the upcoming episodes.